there's a WGA strike still going on, everybody, along with SAG-AFTRA. And that leads me to my next topic, because WGA has now put out this whole thing about what's happening and how we can actually get a resolve to this strike. Now, they said the WGA has suggested that the legacy studios, if they want a fair deal with writers, they have to either assert their interests within the studio alliance, because there's a whole alliance right now. That's what the AMPTP is. All the studios come together and they negotiate as one. They said they either have to get like their say in there, or they have to break away from the broken AMPTP model, which would mean what they want to do right now is negotiate with different legacy studios and make deals, because they're saying right now that the AMPTP they're not really talking to them. Of course, they had their sit down on August 11th, and the AMPTP gave them a deal, and they went and gave them a counter deal. And then on the 15th of August, nothing happened. Like, the counter deal came from WGA, and AMPTP said, take our first deal, we're not going to negotiate. So they're saying right now it's a broken system. Now, if they did do something like this, now, WGA says that our legacy studios that have agreed to a lot of the agreements they want, a lot of the AI stuff, a lot of the wage increases, the writers' rooms. There's a lot of different studios that are saying, hey, we will do this. So they're saying, well, you should all negotiate individually and break apart from this AMPTP. But at that point, then, it would kind of get like the Wild West to me. At that point, if that had happened, of course, we'd get back to work. That'd be great. But then when AFTRA was around, a long time ago now, it seems like, we had all these different contracts. We had no idea what our contract would be. We wouldn't know what our wages would be. They do backhand deals. And it makes me think that maybe, I don't want to be like negative about this, but it makes me start thinking that that could be the route that it could go. And then we wouldn't have like a good overall deal, but maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing. But the AMPTP have not been helping at all. And WJ said, we will continue attempting to get the writers to get what they need, but they said that the AMPTP would like us to negotiate inwards and not outwards. Like, they want us to fight amongst ourselves. And they said they encourage us to negotiate with ourselves, but we are not going to do that today. Instead, the companies inside the AMPTP who want a fair deal with the writers take control of the AMPTP process. Well, I said it a million times. AMPTP process yourselves and decide to make a deal separately. Now, again, I don't know about this. Like, do we think that they should do this? Like, Lexi, what do you think? If you're a legacy studio, do you think you should break from the big conglomerate that's supposed to protect you and make a deal together, or should you make your own deal and get back to work?
Well, so I was going to ask you to explain this a little bit more, but you did. So you explained it the way that I was hoping you would. But also, from what I read in the article, this goes back to that this umbrella doesn't necessarily cover the streaming platforms, from what I understand.
No, it would be like a different thing. Yeah.
So basically what they're saying for the writers in particular with this is that the writers are asking for like full coverage, and that this umbrella that they have right now that they're under is that it's only going to cover film and television, and that it basically is going to skirt the streaming services on them somehow. And so they're like, this is kind of nonsense, and we want to yank the background of this out. We want to like yank this out, and so that we can, have full control over what we write, and that it doesn't matter like what we're writing for, as long as like what we're writing for, we're getting our residuals and our piece and what we're talking about. It doesn't matter if we're writing for a fucking TV show or a movie or a streaming service or a fucking web show or God knows what, as long as it falls under the moniker of the WGA, then that's when we should be getting it. And it doesn't, this whole thing over here that we're working, because the thing is that so much of, not to cut you off there, but so much of our stuff that we have in existence right now, including right down to the very governing laws that exist in like the system that protects everyone and what have you, they're all wrapped up around television and film. And so streaming is so open to abuse. They're able to get away with like everything. So even right now with what's going on, they're trying to like get all of this for you guys. And the streaming services are still over here like, we can do whatever the fuck we want. And it's like, yeah, you guys still kind of can. And it's like, well, that's because like Congress isn't paying attention to that either. Like there are laws that need to be put into place that were put into place in the 80s and the 70s and like the 90s and shit that stopped all of these like television and film things from being able to fuck people, that for years have been in place that now people are able to get away with, like especially like when you look at YouTube. And I know like that's not necessarily like a platform, but
Wrestling from
YouTube
America.
YouTube does kind of like fall under this again too, because like there are people that start to have high volume, like Mr. Beast, right? Mr. Beast falls under some of this stuff. He's high enough level now. He's got enough of a staff and he's got enough of people around him that so, but he doesn't have to follow any laws, right? Because he's Mr.
Yeah.
Beast. So it's like,
Yeah,
where
Raiders
does
of
that where does
America.
that stuff fall under? Where does that go into the laws that exist with what you guys are fighting for? So where do the protections go when you go get a job and you get hired by Mr. Beast, right? Your
Well, that's the
protections
thing
go out
then
the
too.
window.
When you break it apart like this, protections do go out the window. It becomes like the Wild West again, as opposed to like we know universally how things are supposed to work. And if this starts happening, they might have a deal. Let's say Sony wants to do a deal. Okay, we'll make a deal with Sony. Now Sony Productions will go back to work, and whatever that deal is, agree upon that. But then everybody else has still got to wait to negotiate with WGA or with SAG-AFTRA. So now you might slowly get stuff going, but the contracts could differ. And like what you're saying too, it's like, who knows what we're going to fall under? Like stuff like that might change the whole entertainment industry in whole because of this. I mean, the AMPTP has been doing this alliance for a long time, and it's just to protect that everyone has one deal across the board. And honestly, Lexi, if this goes down, like, of course, like the streaming stuff won't happen right away. You still will have that stuff shut down because WGA won't go back to work with them until they cave, or maybe they will cave. Maybe some of those people are. We have no idea who's actually saying, because they're saying, oh, some want this, some agree upon that, and some agree upon this, but they're being very vague about it. So I don't know. Like for me though, it's like I think this is the wrong route. Maybe I think that we might separate ourselves and hurt ourselves more. But then again, people need to get back to work. Paul, what do you think about this? Are you thinking that this is a good way to go, or do you think that they should just wait to get one deal across the board?
Oh, definitely one deal, definitely. But I will say wrestling might be the way to go. Just have them
It might be
in the ring.
Yeah.
And just figure it out that way.
Do it like rollerball. All the rules and all the stuff. Yeah, everything's figured out by the ring. You just go in and you fucking fight till there's one dude left.
Oh yeah, one
shall stand and one shall fall.
There you go. There you go.
All the rules of the world are figured out in the ring.
Yeah, why not? I don't trust anything with the AMPTP. I don't. Everything they've done has been just shady to me, and I feel like whatever they come up with is in the last at least couple of months has just been crap every time.
Yeah,
and it's either been a ploy to break the negotiations or make them look bad and make the WGA and the SAG committees look bad. There hasn't been a let's sit down and figure this out really with them. It's always been these underhandedness to them. And I think that they need to learn how to negotiate and to really come to the table and say, look, here's what we're really offering. This meets your demands to a certain degree. And the negotiations are a two-way street. There's going to be things that we can't expect to get everything we want, but there has to be a give, and there doesn't seem to be any. And that's where I stand with it. And I just don't trust them at this point.
Yeah, Paul, it seems like there is no give here because like they were saying before, it's like when they sat down, it was a joke. Like they sat down August 11th, the 15th, and they're like, oh, they were just like pretty much gaslighting us to get us in the room to be like, sign a deal, because it's the best thing you're getting, as opposed to being like, let's talk about this. Okay, well, usually in a negotiation, you go back and forth and say, okay, you want this? Well, we want this. We'll take a little bit of this. You take a little bit of that. You know, you give here, we'll give there. But there's none of that happening. And we're just like pushing further and further into the year. It is now September. 131 days has been happening. That's a long time, you know.
You saw the news about. Sorry, I don't mean to rub. I just want to let you know. You saw the news about how the loss of money that Warner Brothers had was almost like
300 to 500 million.
And they're asking for like 400 million for the year, which is it's ridiculous.
Are they looking for a bailout?
No, they're going to probably start writing things off because that's what they do at Warner Brothers.
Okay.
Ever since Zaslav took over, he's always writing
we're not
stuff
looking
off.
for a government bailout over here. I'm like, we're not putting up with
don't-
that shit, are we? Because I'm not fucking playing that game with fucking Warner Brothers over here.
I
can't
hope
think
not,
of anybody who
because
doesn't need money.
it
Go
was like
ask
less than
fucking
50 millions.
J.K.
50 million
Rowling
to make a
to throw
deal.
that shit back if you need some, for fuck's
Look,
sakes.
but-
Jesus
Look,
Christ.
Barbie is the biggest movie of the year from Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
They're making money, so
Right. They're killing
This is
it.
no excuse. Yeah, this
There's
is
no excuse at all. Yeah, and I think end of the day though, I think like we're saying, one deal, because if you open the floodgates and you do all these different deals, it's going to get convoluted. You're going to have a lot of problems, and I think it's going to cause more drama down the line than if we just work something out right now with the alliance. I mean, time will tell what happens there, because people have to get back to work.